In a world where left is up and right is apparently wrong, do souls make sense of it all? Or at least have fun trying? Gear up, friends, for Chicken and the Dog.
Welcome to another episode of Chicken and the Dog. I am the dog, and with me, as always, is the guy that is known to have tender thighs, the chicken. What up, Doug?
I mean, tender, tender thighs. Okay. What about these wings?
Uh, they are, I don't know. I don't have anything. Wait, you got to give me more time to think about when I talk about your appendages. I've had all week to think about that. So you can't put me on the spot you can't put me on the spot. Anyway, I digress on that one. So, look, guys, this is another episode, right? And we are continuing our recap shows. And this week is a week that I know I've been looking forward to. You, my friend, may not, because it is about one of your favorite people.
I had a hard time waking up this morning.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. So, look, man, we are going to do a season recap of the evil one, Eli Drinkwitz, and the Missouri Tigers. They had, I don't know, man. I'm going to say an interesting season. As really digging into this thing, it wasn't anything to write home about, right? It really, I mean, their overall score, I mean, the overall record wasn't terrible. They had 3 losses, but but they didn't really play anyone. So let me just run through these real quick, and then we'll start diving in. So they played Murray State. They beat them 51-0. Good job, buddy. Then Buffalo beat them 38-0. And then they played a number 24 at the time, Boston College, and beat them 27-21. Then, in my opinion, this is probably their best win of the season. They played a Vanderbilt and beat them in two overtimes, 30-27. Then they lost to A&M 41-10. Well, let me phrase it. You got thumped by Texas A&M 41-10. You beat UMass 45-3. You beat Auburn, but we talked about Auburn's kind of crazy, weird season last year. You only beat them by 4 points, 21-17. You got smoked by Alabama. Matter of fact, you didn't even show up. You got beat 34-0. You did beat Oklahoma, but again, Oklahoma had another one of those weird seasons. You beat them 30-23. And then you lost to my friend's team, the South Carolina Gamecocks, 34-30. And that was a great loss, by the way. And then you beat Mississippi State, again, who didn't. And then, unfortunately, you beat the Fighting Pittmans, Arkansas 28-21, and then you won your bowl game to Iowa 27-24. So, you played at the time of playing, you played 4 ranked teams. You went 1-3, and the 3 that you lost were SEC.
Not an impressive year. You're 4-0 after beating Vanderbilt in double overtime at home. And at this point, Vanderbilt was just starting to garner some attention, right? We're just starting to kind of notice that maybe they weren't terrible this year. So in my mind, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a conference win. It's your first conference win of the season, but it's not really a good look when it takes you double overtime to do it by a field goal. And then you come out the next week in College Station and got smoked by the Aggies. Apparently, yelling the night before worked that week. You unimpressively beat UMass, snoozer, and then you beat Auburn, which we all know at this point, Auburn kind of struggled. They were up and down on the Plains last year. So that evil genius doesn't really work. Doesn't really work that much this past year.
Mm-mm.
I was underwhelmed by what now. I was not prepared to be overwhelmed with what Missouri was going to do this last year. I always believe that they are overhyped, right? Uh, Drinkwitz can come up with all these great offensive schemes. We've talked about what he can do with various quarterbacks that he's had in his tenure there, but he's not really a defensive minded coach. Um, their defense isn't usually bad by any stretch, but they have a baseline of, yeah, they're solid. Nothing overwhelmingly impressive. That's not going to get it done. That doesn't impress me to forecast another 10-3 year for you next year, or maybe 11 wins. I'm not inspired here.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't see them. Well, they might go down next year because one of the key elements that they're going to be missing next year, I mean, is a 48-year-old quarterback with the name of Brady Cook, right? So he is going into the draft after his 17th season playing college football. So yeah, I mean, I think that's going to affect them, but the evil one has also done a very good job, kind of like my man crush Lane Kiffin, and recruiting and bringing in quarterbacks. He does a great job. He has done a great job over the years. I don't see that being a problem again next year. Is he going to be a Brady Cook? Probably not. I mean, Brady Cook, I mean, he was a stud. And look, they got beat by Alabama. They got smoked by Alabama, but Brady Cook was hurt. They did win against Oklahoma without Brady Cook, but still, it was Oklahoma. But we talk about this all the time, and this is their schedule for next year, right? With the as far as conference play, and Vandy, they're not going to beat Vandy next year. I'm telling you that right now. Not with
Ernie.
Ernie coming back, right? Hey, Bert. And look, I don't think they beat A&M. I think A&M's going to do all right next year. Auburn, now they got Jackson Arnold. I think Auburn's a threat to them. Alabama, the great thing about Alabama this year is Jalen Milroe is not under center. Jalen Milroe was either fantastic or he looked like a bum.
Small hands.
Yeah, small hands like the Burger King guy. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they could beat Oklahoma next year, but I think they lose to Alabama. They are not going to beat South Carolina. I'm telling you that right now. Lenore Sellers is going to tear them up. I'll give them a win against Mississippi State. And I don't think they win against the Fighting Pittmans, man, because Green's coming back. So I see a downward production. I do see a downward projection in Mizzou's season for this year versus last year. If you ask me, they kind of have an easy schedule.
It's the SEC, right? So is there an easy schedule in the Southeastern Conference? I don't know. Maybe there are certainly tougher schedules in the Southeastern Conference. If you're Mississippi State, I don't care who you're playing next year. It's the toughest schedule you've ever seen.
It's true.
You just lost every game on that schedule. So there's that. I think a lot of what happens here is what can he do? That one particular coach whose name shall not be mentioned. What can he do with this updated roster? He lost, last I saw, somewhere around 16 players, either to graduation or the portal. And at the same time, he's brought in like around 17. So this is another one that knows of the era in which we currently live, and he knows how to work that portal. What can he do with that? What is he going to be able? Is he going to be able to go undefeated in the non-conference games, which he did this past year? He won every non-conference game that he played. But what's he going to be able to do with the SEC schedule as it is? I agree with you. I don't see A&M losing to them. I don't see Alabama losing to them. I don't see Arkansas losing to them. I think Vanderbilt is going to be a tough contest. You'll find it noted that I didn't jump in with the Gamecocks there for whatever reason. The evil one. Can see with his black heart into what the Gamecocks are trying to do. It's been difficult year in and year out, whether we beat them, whether we lose to them. That's been a difficult matchup. The governor's battle there, mayor's battle, whoever it is of Columbia, Missouri, Columbia, South Carolina, has always been just one of those that it's like a rivalry game. It's hard to call.
Yeah, I'm sitting there looking, man. I guess one of their biggest, I'm going to say their bright spot, if you want to say that they have a bright spot, is their their main wide receiver, their leading receiver of the year, Luther Burden the third. He's coming back next year, so that's good news, right? But they're losing some. I mean, they're one of their best rushers with. He was a transfer, I believe, out of App State. He came there, Noel. Or is it Noel?
Noel.
Can I sing it?
I'd rather you not.
Okay, thanks. I won't. I'll pull back. But he's gone. So look, man, they've got some rebuilding to do, but like you said, man, Drinkwitz does a great job, and he has, as much as we don't like him, and I'm with you. You have a bigger, I'm not going to say hatred. That's a strong word.
Is it?
Okay, I'll go with hatred. you have a hatred. I just have a dislike. So, Lord, if you're listening, I want you to write this down. You have a strong hatred for this guy, but he does a great job. I mean, I'm not going to say he's one of the best, but he's definitely up there when it comes to recruiting and pulling people out of not necessarily recruiting out of high school, but pulling people out of the portal and putting them to work. So he's definitely an offensive genius. And in my mind, that's been the problem with Mizzou. You and I talked about this earlier, man. That's been the problem with Mizzou over, the last many years is, yes, they can put an offense together, but they can't stop anyone. Vanderbilt put 27 on there. A&M put 41 on there. And we knew A&M's offense was up and down last year. It wasn't like they were going up against, Lane Kiffin's offense. This high-powered Jackson Dart's going to throw 480 yards, or a Nussmeier is going to throw another 600 yards. It's not like he was going up against, A&M didn't have that kind of offense. They didn't. But they put 41 points on their defense. Not a good look at all. So, yeah. Go ahead.
I would say, and I'll touch on a couple things real quick here as I peruse the depth chart for Missouri for this next season. So you had mentioned Luther Burden the third a minute ago. No, that joker's gone.
Is he?
Oh yeah, he's going to the draft. As is Theo Wees Jr. The top two receivers for Missouri this past season have declared they're going to the draft, my friend. The guys that are left behind, I don't want to say that they're unimpressive, but they don't have that jump out at you stat line. Okay, Marquise Johnson was a 3-star. He had 352 receiving yards this past year and a touchdown. Joshua Manning was a 4-star at coming in, a sophomore last year, and he had 192 yards and a touchdown. Now, what you do have coming in is you've got Kevin Coleman, a former 4-star recruit, transferring in from, I can't tell if it's Ball State or Louisville. He had 932 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. So this guy knows how to work that transfer portal. At quarterback, Bo Pribula, I don't know. I knew I'd say it wrong even after I was told how to say it. Transferring in from Penn State, likely to take over QB1. Drew Pine is still there. He threw for 396 yards and 3 touchdowns, also 3 picks last year. Whereas Bo, coming out of Penn State, 275 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception. He can also run the ball a little bit. So, yes, the promise of, all right, it's pretty much going to be a new face to the offense, but we know what they can do in Missouri. Looking down at the defense, you lost some guys. Johnny Walker is going pro. He was one of your top defensive linemen. Jalen Brown.
I thought that was a Scotch.
That too.
Okay.
This is Johnny Walker Jr.
Oh.
So, Dad started. No, I digress.
Sorry.
Jalen Brown, one of your edge rushers, he's transferred out. He's going to South Carolina. Williams Nwari, he's transferred out. He's going to Nebraska. You had Jay Moore has graduated. Christian Williams has graduated. So that's just on the defensive line. Now you got some guys coming in, but no real earth-shattering moves there on your defensive front. It's going to be interesting to see, can he make the same type of dynamic moves that he can make on offense? Can he make those same type of moves on defense? Because in my mind, for Missouri to not maintain success, I think they've already got a level of it, but to improve, to grow as a program, they've got to stop just being an offensive unit. They've got to show that they can do it on both sides of the ball, because to your point, they can't go up against the Alabamas and get just completely smoked out of the building and expect to be competitive in this conference.
No, not at all. And you're right. I mean, I did make the mistake about Burden. And look, our young producer, Bryson, he provides us with a lot of information. And look, as a typical dog, I just skim through things and not actually pay attention that well. So my apologies to Bryson and all of our listeners of my inability to pay attention. Spoken like a true dog. But yeah,
over there licking and doing stuff. I don't know what to tell you.
Running through red lights.
Whoa, easy. Speeding. Look, no, but seriously, I mean, they are going to have a really new team, like you said. I mean, they really do. I mean, this team is just going to be way different in 25 than it was in 24. But I mean, as much as we dislike the guy, I think he'll do. I think he'll do okay. I see his production going down in 25 versus 24. But one of the things I was going to bring up, I read it the other day, is, and it just kind of goes along with what we're talking about. All 16 head coaches from the SEC from last year are returning this year. It's the first time in quite some time that we're not having a brand new coach within the SEC. And that one is impressive, I guess. Or is it just because there's not a lot of talent out there to grab from? I don't know, because, I mean, there's several people that could have find themselves on a hot seat that could have been gone, but all 16 are coming back.
Not from a personal standpoint, but I like all of the coaches that you have in this conference. I think that they all, to a degree, fit their pro. We talked about Florida on the last show, and can he be bigger? Can he make himself bigger than the Florida Gator program? I think you've got the exact opposite here with Missouri. Could you tone it down a minute?
Yeah.
You're Missouri, for crying out. You've done a great job. You've done a great job. But could you just take it down a notch? You're not Lane Kiffin's little brother. You don't get the same street cred that he does yet. Maybe if you weren't such a freaking punk, we'd be okay with you. But you are, so we're not. But I think that in the overall landscape of the SEC, I think every one of these programs has got a pretty doggone good coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too, with the exception of Stoops. I just don't like him.
What are you going to do when he ends up at Georgia as an assistant? You'll love him then.
Will I?
Won't you? You
Maybe.
took Muschamp.
I never disliked Muschamp. That was you.
Well, good reason.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I will agree with you. I mean, I think all of them are pretty solid coaches. I mean, they really are. I mean, all the way even to the lower echelon of the SEC, the Vanderbilts, the Fighting Pittman. I mean, we're a huge Sam Pittman fan, right? And I think, Auburn's fixing to be Auburn again under Hugh Freeze. So I think it's very exciting to be part of the SEC. I think it's definitely. I mean, the Big Ten will say, we won the last 2 national championships, but you only have 2 teams that are relevant in the Big Ten. SEC's got 6, 7, 8 that are relevant, that can play football. So I like them. I like where the SEC is headed for sure.
Yeah, and I'll close out my thoughts on him with this. Every good story needs a villain. And I think that Missouri and the evil one fill that role perfectly.
Yeah, I do too, man. I do. I'm looking forward to this upcoming season. Hey, I did read something the other day too, and I one of the
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
You read?
Hip hop anonymous.
I wanted all of our fans to hear that. He read. Keep sending in your emails. He can read.
I can read some, as long as it's big text, because I'm old and blind, and it's if it's got more than 6 letters in the word, I may struggle. I'm just saying. But no, I read the other day that there's a lot of talks. It's been talks for years about it, expanding conference play from 8 to 9 to 10. I think the Big Ten are going to 9, or they're at 9 now, conference play. And so they're really pushing the SEC. And then something else that was said is, if they start doing that, there's already a lot of talks of canceling the spring games. Have y'all heard about that?
I had heard about them wanting to, or talking about expanding to 9 conference games. I had not heard about canceling the spring games. I did see where Texas, under Sarkisian, is doing more of a skills exhibition, almost like a combine approach to their. Let's be honest, the spring game is for the fans, right? Like, decisions have already been made, depth charts have already been determined as far as who is where going into fall practice, but the spring game is for the fans. So I think that they're looking at tweaking things a little bit, and everybody does it differently. One of the things that South Carolina does is there will always be an offensive play in there somewhere where they toss it to the back corner of the end zone, and lo and behold, Darius Rucker, Dawn Staley, find a celebrity that loves the Gamecocks, fill in that blank, is going to catch it, right? So they're all, we're playing, but we're not kind of an atmosphere. So to say that they're going to cancel it, are you really going to miss it?
No, I mean, no, not really. And maybe one day you will be the celebrity in the end zone to catch the football.
I have been passed over so many times for that great honor.
It's coming, buddy.
Yeah.
It's coming. But one of the takes that they were saying, and it was really interesting to me, is one of the takes that they were saying of getting rid of the spring game is because the spring game kind of plays out really some of the number one, number two spots. And if you remember, the transfer portal opens up or is still open during that time. And you see a lot of people jump in the portal, especially QBs, right after the spring game because they know they're not going to get they're not getting QB1. So this article, its take was kind of like, well, if we get rid of the spring games, and maybe you don't lose all those players, some of those players. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but and that's what I'm saying. That's where I kind of disagree with that take, right? Because again, by the time you get they've gone through spring practice, which is it's got its own level of intensity, right? But by the time they get through spring practice, if you transferred in hoping that you were going to take the QB1 job, for example, okay, uh, you know before the spring, it's not like the spring game told you that that's what was going to happen. So taking away the spring game is not going to eliminate that decision for that quarterback. He's already made up his mind. He already knows he doesn't have a shot at being QB1. Now, maybe the battle is still pretty intense at that point, but again, the spring game just wraps up. It's the last practice is all it is. It doesn't determine anything for kickoff of game week 1. That's going to happen in fall practice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you on that. But like, I don't know, man. I mean, like right now, I would say that Gunnar Stockton and at UGA is probably the betting favorite to take over. Now, I'm sure the buzz around campus pricing, you could probably confirm. Kirby's probably saying, "Oh yeah, it's a quarterback battle." Because what's that young QB was freshman last year.
Puglisi.
Yeah, a lot of people saying, well, he could play too, and he might. I mean, he might be the better choice over Gunnar Stockton. I don't know, but I would say the betting favorite is Gunnar Stockton, right? But when you've got a program like a Mizzou right now, where you're brought in several people, I mean, is Bo? I'm not gonna even dream of trying to pronounce his last name. Is he the guy? I mean, he came from Penn State, he's a 3-star. Is he truly? Does he know he's a starting quarterback before this transfer portal window closes? I don't know. Now, I guess it doesn't hurt. He can go back in the portal again if he wanted to, right? I mean, there's no penalties right now. But does he know he's got it, or is it still a battle through through the up into the fall practice?
I think it's fair to say with their current quarterback room that it's still a battle. I mean, again, Drew Pine doesn't have impressive stats from last season, but he came out of school a 4-star. He's been in this program for a little bit. You've got Sam Horn, a redshirt sophomore who has been in this program. No stats to speak of at this point, but he was a 4-star recruit. Matt Zollers coming in from high school, a 4-star recruit, and then of course Bo transferring in from Penn State. So there's a lot of talent in that quarterback room. Do all of those guys kind of look at Bo and think, well, he was probably brought in here to start, wasn't he? But he wasn't. It's not like he transferred from starting somewhere else.
That's
Right?
true.
He transferred away from Penn State because he believes that he's QB1 material. And he believes that Mizzou is the place where he can show that. How it plays out during spring practice, during fall practice, that's where it all comes, where the rubber meets the road and where we'll see all this stuff come. I don't see Matt Zollers as a true freshman being the guy on campus next year for the Missouri Tigers. I think it probably comes down to Bo Pribula and Drew Pine as to who's going to be QB1.
So you don't think this Bo kid is you don't think he could be the new Brent Vandergriff?
I mean, anything is possible, right? Like, we never thought that he was going to turn into the dud that he was in Kentucky.
No.
I mean, I just assumed that Georgia was just ridiculously deep in quarterback talent. They had Stetson Bennett. They had Carson Beck. They had Brock Vandergriff, whatever. They had all these big names that were 5 stars. Maybe if they could create a 6th star, because you had the 5 stars and then a G on the side of your helmet. Isn't that cute? They had all this talent in there, and then one of them transfers to go to Kentucky, and you're like, what happened to this kid? What are they putting in the water in Lexington, Kentucky?
Yeah, I mean, I think the world thought that Brock was going to go to Kentucky and do well. I mean, I think everybody's like, oh yeah, he's QB2 at Georgia. He's been buying his time. He was a stud in high school, right? Yeah, he's a dual threat quarterback. He's just going to light it up under Stoops' offense. And my Lord, he was a dud. So
yeah, I don't understand what happened there. I like to believe that that's probably the exception to the rule. Hopefully, Bo doesn't see that happen for him here at Missouri. I thought, honestly, with Vandergriff going to Kentucky, that was going to translate into somewhere around 3 wins on their schedule, added to what we already expected. So, for example, if your baseline was a 6-win season for Kentucky, well, now you got Brock Vandergriff coming in. That's a 9-win season, right? Like, that was my mentality at the time, and it went the other way. I don't think that that's what happens here in Missouri. I think, like I said, I think that's the exception, not the rule. I think that Missouri ends up with another good year. I don't think that it's a 9-win regular season for them. I think the schedule is just too stacked. And I think that they've got too many questions to answer, too much of an identity to recreate, both offensively and defensively. I think it's going to be a struggle next year, but I think they still go bowling, and I think that he's still annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I definitely think they'll go bowling next year, but win 9 regular season games, nah. They may win 7. They'll probably win the 4 non-conference games because they'll play people like a Murray State or a Buffalo, or a UMass. I'll even say Boston College. I mean, I think Boston College had a fluky year last year. They were okay, but they're going to play chump teams, and so they're going to get 4 W's off of that. But yeah, they may be Mississippi State and ooh, wow. I mean, I think there is a chance that they may not even be 500. I mean, I would give them a shoe in over Mississippi State, but I wouldn't give them a shoe in over Arkansas, Carolina, Oklahoma, Alabama, Auburn, A&M, Vandy. Would you?
No, and like I said, that South Carolina game for me is always going to be a toss-up. Years that I've known that Carolina was better than Missouri, they'd find a way to beat us. This past season, where South Carolina beat Missouri, it came down to the end of the ball game when Rocket Sanders took it all the way in for the go-ahead game-winning touchdown. It's just that type of matchup between these two schools. So that was a hard one to call. It's gonna be an interesting year for Missouri. I think that maybe you're dead on with 7-8 wins. I don't think that they go 500. I don't think they go below 500. That this voodoo that he's got, they always end up finding a way to win games that they had no business winning. And so I see that happening. But again, looking at it now, if you look at the conference lineup that they're going to have next season, and again, all that is flipped from this past season, home and away, that's going to be a pretty big ask. Vanderbilt might not be ranked going into the year, but they're going to be regarded as a competitive school. A&M, I don't know where they will be as the real preseason gets close. I don't want to talk about final rankings and all that stuff. Let's wait until fall. Auburn, we expect Auburn to be better. We expect Alabama to be better than they were this past year. Oklahoma, I don't know. Again, South Carolina's that toss-up game. I'm with you on Mississippi State. They've got a long road.
Oh, it's long.
Yeah, you're going to beat them. Arkansas, they're an up-and-comer too.
And you got to go to Arkansas and play that game.
You got to go to Arkansas. That's a big ask. It's going to be an interesting year. And we'll obviously dive into more of that later on when we do their forecast show. But this next season could still be a big ask. And 7 wins might be a great year on that schedule.
If he goes 500 or below, is he on the hot seat, or has Eli done enough at Mizzou where he has that security?
Have you ever seen any mafia movies?
Yes.
Someday you may owe me a favor. I don't think that Eli's going to be on the hot seat anywhere. I think that he's done enough favors for the right people, and someday he may come to them for a favor, and they might say, "Okay, Godfather, what do you need?"
Wow, Drinkwitz, is that a mafia name, or is that even his real name?
In Poland, I think it's the Polish mafia.
Okay, but look, yeah, they got a. I don't know, man. Their season next year is going to be, like I said, just because it's just a different team. It's a way different team. So how they're going to look next year will be really, I can't wait for that recap, when we do the forecast show on them, because we'll probably say they're going to lose every game, even to a Murray State, just because, who we're talking about. But by that time, you may have some more information as far as who's starting this and that. Was there any more craziness in the transfer portal? So we've looked at these other teams in the past, right? All the teams that we've already covered, right? The Mississippi States, the Floridas, pretty much everybody that we've looked at so far, we've kind of gave that nod that they're going to go up from there. Mississippi State, we believe, is going to be better in 25 than they were in 24. We believe that. Now, does that make them a playoff contender? No, they may actually win 2 conference games, But I'm going to be the first to say it. Mizzou is not going to go up. They will go down. This team will not go up. No way.
Yeah, and again, I don't disagree with that. I think it's good. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I'm counting the 4 non-conferences in their favor, and I'm coming up with a 7-win season. Now, I am giving South Carolina the win in that forecast. So again, with that being a flip the coin kind of a game, that still puts us in that 7 to 8 win margin, which is a step back from what they did this past year. Not necessarily the deepest thought chicken scratch moment, and I'm going to do this as brought to you by OTC Kennels, our friends that we just had on the radio not too long ago, doing their dogs of the year. But what does happen? You mentioned it before. Does that put Eli on a hot seat to have that type of a year? But you'll notice, and this is where the chicken scratch comes in, where you start clawing around and figuring stuff out. there were a lot of 9-3 schools, 3 notable ones in the SEC this past season. Missouri was right there with that. And you didn't hear any noise coming out of that camp. Obviously, Alabama was lobbying to get into the playoffs. Lane wanted his Ole Miss Rebels in the playoffs. Shane Beamer was talking up the Gamecocks and how they deserved to be in the playoffs. And Missouri was 9-3, just like the rest of them, and kept their mouth shut. Now, they had losses to Alabama and South Carolina, so maybe that's why he stayed quiet. But there was no posturing there by this particular coach.
Are you saying you like him now?
Quite to the contrary.
Okay.
I'm wondering if there is some type of an acceptance of, yeah, we're not at that level, and I don't know that we're trending in the right direction. If you're 9-3 Missouri, in my estimation, even having losses to Alabama and having losses, a loss to South Carolina, if you're 9-3 and you are on a tear, man, you just believe that the world is your oyster and you're gonna be it, which is where he was before the season kicked off. If that's still your mentality, then that, just by historical trend with this guy, would translate into that same bravado at the end of the year, that same type of posturing. I told you that at 9-3, I didn't think South Carolina deserved to be in there. I thought that they deserved it more than Alabama, maybe. But I didn't think that a 9-3 school needed to be in the playoffs based on that, on how it was set up. You didn't hear Eli say anything about it at all. I'm wondering if his confidence was affected by last year, even though he only had 3 losses.
Ooh. That's a pretty good take, man, because you're right. He did not say, yeah, we're 9-3 too. We deserve to be in that. He kept his mouth shut.
And in those 3 losses, he only got beat handedly in 2 of them. He 41-10 to Texas A&M. You got smoked. 34-0. Drew Pine threw for 42 yards that day against Alabama. You got taken behind the woodshed. As I said, in Columbia against the Gamecocks, it was back and forth all night long, and it's a late touchdown by the Gamecocks to win that one 34-30. So, yes, it's an L, but it's not like you got just smoked. It was an exciting ball game, but there's no posturing whatsoever by Eli coming after that one. I wonder if he was just feeling, a little less than.
Yeah, and look, and the Alabama game, yeah, they got drove by Alabama. But I mean, it's also Alabama too. Brady Cook was not the guy, right?
Correct.
So Brady Cook was not under center, so that made a difference. Now, but you said you looked at their 2025 season, you gave them their 4 non-conference. I'm going to go no on that because I wanted to look and see, who else. Yeah, and 3 of them, yeah, I give them. But I'm going to tell you, they got to play Kansas next year in week 2. And the Jayhawks, the Jayhawks, they're doing better, man. They're putting together some pretty good stuff over there in Kansas, man, as far as football. They're not just playing basketball anymore, man. So I don't know, man. That could be a tricky game for Eli being that early in the season. That Kansas game could, for sure. One last thing before we either close the show out or go on to something else. You asked me a question at the beginning. I told you that I'm not that quick of a thinker on most things. So you asked me about your wings. You have crispy wings. So now that you know how the dog's mind works, so yeah, I mean, I guess we can move on from the wings. I don't know.
Like many people that are listening to this show, I will stay in your head rent-free all day.
Yeah. There's a lot of space in mine, for sure.
Oh, there's an echo. There's an echo for sure.
Thanks, buddy. I can always count on you to lift me up.
Anytime.
Look, man, I think we beat this Missouri thing to death. You went 9-3 regular season, not bad. You won your bowl game, good job. But this year's going to be challenging. So unless you got anything, I'm done.
I'm all crowed out.
Bryson, you got anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, y'all touched on pretty much everything. I'd say maybe the only two pieces we could talk about in the draft, we got Burden and Mizzou, I think is how you say it. They're offensive tackle, both going to be pretty much locked in for the first round.
Oh, so they're going to have at least 2 first rounders?
I think so. I would put Luther Burden as probably the second best receiver in this class behind Arizona's McMillan, of course. That's speedy 6'4" tree. And then Mimbu, he's probably going to play offensive guard at the next level, but he's going to be a top 15, top 20 guy.
What about the first Noel?
What's that?
The running back, Noel?
Oh, I don't think. Yeah, with this running back class is generationally deep, so I haven't even heard his name yet, to be honest. And I've looked at probably the top 20 guys.
Yeah, he might be one of those guys that gets signed to a free agent deal and works his way on as a special teams guy. But I'm with Bryson on that. I think that's his best trajectory to get into the league. I don't see him as being even a third down guy going into the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah, Brady Cook, I think a team could take a flyer on. He's probably a top 10 quarterback overall.
And this ain't a very heavy quarterback class, and we'll get into more of that in that show. When we do pretty soon, we're going to do a NFL draft show, and we're going to lean heavily on Bryson on that. But it's not a heavy quarterback class.
Yeah, not at all.
So, cool, guys. That's all we got. I will mention this next week. When we have next week's show, we're going to cover the Ole Miss Rebels, my man, Lane Kiffin, the Fighting Kiffins, and not 100% sure yet. We either going to have Uncle Kenny on the show or he's going to do a write-up. I think the understanding is he's going to be on the show. So, audience, if he's on the show, prepare yourself. It could be interesting. It will be interesting. And you will probably find yourself in a smoker's jacket at the end of the show, maybe sipping on your favorite cocktail in honor of Uncle Kenny.
I'm excited to meet this guy.
Yeah, he's one of a kind, that's for sure. All right, guys. Well, thank y'all for listening. Follow us, share us, tell a friend. Look, man, and real quick, I was at DFW airport last week, man, and renting a car. And normally I just go and pick out a car and go, but I had to go to the counter and spoke to a guy, and he was a big Oklahoma Sooners fan. Told him about the show, and he's like, "Man, I'm going to go listen right now. I hope you did. That would be great. Spread the word, man. That's all I got. Love you. Deuces.
Bye."